In March 2010, at the Geneva International Car Exhibition, the Saudi king unveiled the first car ever made in Saudi Arabia. The car was supposedly designed and manufactured by engineers at King Saud University and received the name of Ghazal 1. For a country like Saudi Arabia, this was great news. The country is known for its dependence on oil exports. These exports, of course, have made the country rich, but as oil use is expected to decrease, Saudi Arabia needs to develop other economic sectors. That's why the news that Saudi Arabia was planning to get into car manufacturing seemed great for the country. With great fanfare, the president of the university involved in the process said the following to the king.
This is a turning point in the path of the kingdom towards becoming a car manufacturing country, similar to other industrialized nations of the world.
And the fact that King Abdullah himself was involved in the process of announcing this car seemed to indicate that this was a very important initiative for Saudi Arabia. Designed specifically for the Gulf climate, the car was developed in collaboration with several major companies like Motorola or Mercedes. A professor involved in the process told local media that there were plans to produce 20,000 of these cars every year. The plan was to achieve full-scale production within 3 years. As a website specialized in cars put it,
this is largely believed to be the cornerstone of a possible automotive industry in Saudi Arabia.
The fact that a local university was so involved in the process was also a way to showcase that Saudi Arabia had skills, knowledge, and technical capabilities beyond the oil sector. The Saudi Minister of Higher Education, in fact, took the opportunity to say the following.
This is a clear proof of the ability of Saudi youth to make innovations and inventions.
Yet, something seemed a bit off. For starters, it's not so easy to design and manufacture a new car from scratch. A professor involved in the process said that the project had started in April 2009, yet the model was already showcased in March 2010, less than a year after. To put things into perspective, Malaysia, for instance, started to think about producing cars in 1985, but couldn't produce a fully Malaysian car in terms of design and manufacture until 2001, 16 years later. Also, Saudi Arabia doesn't seem the perfect place to all of a sudden produce 20,000 cars. The country lacks the main factors needed for car production: lots of steel and skilled workers. In terms of the Ghazal 1 car specifically, there were also few question marks. There was no information about the design process and about how much it relied on pre-existing components. There were also no details about when and where Saudi Arabia planned to step up production. And finally, they did not explain how much was Ghazal 1 supposed to cost. All that raised a lot of questions about the future of the project. So, what happened with the car? Eventually, bloggers found out that Studio Torino, an Italian company, played a significant role in the design process. Their website provided details about the car's design, which brought into question if it was really a Saudi car. You could actually see several photos of non-Saudi people working on the design of the car. In this photo, for instance, you can see Alfredo Stolla, the founder of Studio Torino, showing the final Ghazal 1 to the management of King Saud University, according to their website. How did the situation evolve? Several years later, there were no updates about the project. Surprisingly, none of the actors involved nor specialized websites provided any updates. The only reference that I could find about the topic were this article from 2012, which said that there was still no tangible process, and a French article from 2014, which simply wondered if there was ever going to be a Ghazal 1 car. The lack of news about the car seemed quite odd, given the excitement with which it was announced and the fact that there was supposedly a partnership of different universities and companies that would provide the $500 million necessary for its production. After these two articles, there was silence again. You could not find any references on the internet until 2016, when an academic article explained the design process of Ghazal 1 without giving any information about its production. In this article, prepared by Saudi researchers, there was no mention at all of Studio Torino and of other foreign actors involved in the process. The article, in fact, states several times that this is the first Saudi car, even though most of the design was carried out by an Italian company. In any case, after this article, you could not find any references to Ghazal 1 on the internet. No news about production, no news about what happened, until 2022. A new academic article had a theory. This article focused on the rapid rise of Saudi universities in global rankings. Among other things, it argued that much of the progress was due to signing foreign researchers with a good reputation and many academic publications, rather than genuine progress within the country. And going back to Ghazal 1, the article portrayed this initiative as part of Saudi Arabia's plan to give an image of rapid technological and academic progress.
All Saudis remember that day in 2010 when King Saud University invited the late Saudi King Abdullah to launch the first ever Saudi-made car, Ghazal 1. It was a national scientific propaganda event that was even shown at Geneva's International Motor Show. That was a decade ago, and up to now, Saudi Arabia does not have a factory for cars, nor can it reliably make car parts to be exported to developed countries.
So first of all, this confirms that a decade later, there was still no production of Ghazal 1. And second, the article provided a very clear explanation. Ghazal 1 was not really about producing cars and diversifying the economy. It was a propaganda event designed to attract media attention. The goal was to give the impression that 1. Saudi Arabia is doing efforts to change its economy, and 2. that local universities have the knowledge and capacity to do so. In fact, the article provided a couple more examples of propaganda events similar to this that never quite materialized, like the Fira needle or the COVID vaccine in line with Islamic law.
Another recent public scientific propaganda initiative is that led by King Abdulaziz University to work towards developing a COVID-19 vaccine in line with Islamic law, that is, a halal COVID-19 vaccine. If these promises took place in the UK or another developed country and were not delivered upon, a transparent national inquiry would be opened immediately as the research was conducted using public funds.
All these were initiatives that were widely publicized, but that never materialized. Yet, what is surprising here is that all these inventions disappear without anyone making any questions and without any kind of official explanation. This seems to be something quite common in Saudi Arabia. For instance, in 2014, there was again an announcement of the first Saudi car, a different model. Again, the news came with grand statements. Supposedly, 300,000 units of this model would be produced per year, and the factory would create 2,000 jobs. Quite ironically, the magazine announcing the first Saudi car in 2014 also announced the first Saudi car 4 years before, the Ghazal 1. Yet, in the announcement of the new first Saudi car in 2014, there was no mention at all of the Ghazal 1, which was supposed to be the first Saudi car. It was simply forgotten. Moreover, I couldn't find any confirmation that this other model, the Mia model, which was the new first Saudi car in 2014, was ever actually produced. So all this is very relevant. Saudi Arabia keeps announcing these new huge projects to produce cars locally, and the media covers them without informing of the previous failures. For instance, in 2022, the first ever Saudi electric car, the Seer, was announced, with great fanfare. The narrative was the same. The Seer would help create thousands of jobs, would contribute to the national GDP, and you guessed it, it would help diversify the economy. Prince Mohammed bin Salman said the following:
Saudi Arabia is not just building a new automotive brand. We are igniting a new industry and an ecosystem that attracts international and local investments.
While Seer was supposed to start manufacture by 2025, as of January 2024, Seer still had to build its factory. So this doesn't seem a very promising start. This pattern of making huge promises only for projects to fail or simply disappear says a lot about Saudi Arabia authorities. Dictators often embark in grandiose projects driven by a desire of media attention and prestige, and not by a serious analysis of what is desirable and feasible. Having lots of money is not a magical solution. For instance, to produce cars, you need plenty of steel and other metals, and you need skilled workers in that sector. This is a common issue in undemocratic regimes. Projects are often initiated to appeal to the dictator's vanity, and they are not necessarily useful for the country. There are many examples of this. From North Korea's huge and empty hotel to Egypt's insanely expensive new capital. In a dictatorship, experts will probably not have the freedom of expression to explain that this project simply doesn't make sense, and the media will probably not be able to criticize it. Car production is not the only example of this in Saudi Arabia. For instance, the country spent billions to try to improve irrigation in the desert and be able to produce more food locally. It was a huge failure. More recently, the country has quietly publicized a 170 kilometers linear city, the line, which would, you guessed it, create thousands of jobs, contribute to the GDP, and diversify the economy. Yet, as of 2024, there are already signs that the project is not going well. So remember, next time Saudi Arabia announces a new, huge, ambitious project, take it with a grain of salt.